All right, so yesterday when we were reading, it was Augie's first day at school, and we learned about his homeroom teacher, Miss Petosa, and she was doing name calls, and we noticed that Julian, like August's mom said, that Julian was kind of two-faced in a way, and he was very nice to adults, but when it came to August, we know that he was very rude to him. So the next chapter is Lamb to the Slaughter, and that's that saying that his dad said on the way home from Christopher's house, and August kept wondering, what does that mean? What does that mean? And his dad wouldn't tell him. So, lamb to the slaughter. Like a lamb to the slaughter. Something that you say about someone who goes somewhere calmly, not knowing that something unpleasant is going to happen to them. I Googled it last night. That's what I was thinking when Miss Petosa called my name, and suddenly it was my turn to talk. My name is August, I said, and yeah, I kind of mumbled it. What? Said someone. Can you speak up, honey? Said Miss Petosa. My name is August, I said louder, forcing myself to look up. I, have a sister named Via and a dog named Daisy. And, that's it. Wonderful, said Miss Petosa. Anyone have questions for August? No one said anything. Okay, you're next, said Miss Petosa to Jack. Wait, I have a question for August, said Julian, raising his hand. Why do you have that tiny braid in the back of your hair? Is that like a Padawan thing? Yeah, I shrugged, nodded. What's a Padawan thing? Said Miss Petosa, smiling at me. It's from Star Wars, Julian answered. A Padawan is a Jedi apprentice. Oh, interesting, answered Miss Petosa, looking at me. So, are you into Star Wars, August? I guess, I nodded, not looking up, because what I really wanted was to slide under the desk. Who's your favorite character? Julian asked. I started thinking maybe he wasn't so bad. Jango Fett. What about Darth Sidious? He said. Do you like him? Okay, guys, you guys can talk about Star Wars stuff at recess, says Miss Petosa cheerfully. But let's keep going. We haven't heard from you yet, she said to Jack. Now it was Jack's turn to talk, but I admit I didn't hear a word he said. Maybe no one got the Darth Sidious thing, and maybe Julian didn't mean anything at all. But in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Darth Sidious's face gets burned by Sith lightning and becomes totally deformed. His skin gets all shriveled up and his whole face just kind of melts. I panicked at Julian, and he was looking at me. Yeah, he knew what he was saying. Choose kind. There was a lot of shuffling around when the bell rang, and everybody got up to leave. I checked my schedule, and it was time for my next class, which is English, in room 321. I didn't stop to see anyone else from my homeroom, if anyone from my homeroom was going my way. I just zoomed out of the class and down the hall and sat as far from the front as possible. The teacher, a really tall man with a yellow beard, was writing on the chalkboard. Kids came in laughing and talking in little groups, but I didn't look up. Basically, the same thing happened in homeroom. Happened again. No one sat next to me except for Jack, who was joking around with some kids who weren't in our homeroom. I could tell Jack was the kind of kids other kids liked. He had a lot of friends. He made people laugh. When the second bell rang, everyone got quiet, and the teacher turned around and faced us. He said his name was Mr. Brown, and then he started talking about what we would be doing this semester. At a certain point, somewhere between A Wrinkle in Time and Shen of the Sea, he noticed me, but kept on talking. I was mostly doodling in my notebook while he talked, but every once in a while I would sneak a look at the other students. Charlotte was in the class. So were Julian and Henry. Miles wasn't, though. Mr. Brown had written on the chalkboard in big block letters, P-R-E-C-E-P-T, precept. Okay, everybody write this down on the very top of your first page in your English notebook. As we did what he told us to do, he said, okay, so who can tell me what a precept is? Does anyone know? No one raised their hand. Mr. Brown smiled, nodded, and turned around to write on the chalkboard again. Precepts equals rules about really important things. Like a motto? Someone called out. Like a motto, said Mr. Brown, nodding as he continued writing on the board. Like a famous quote, like a line from a fortune cookie. Any saying or ground rule that can motivate you. Basically, a precept is anything that helps guide us when making decisions about really important things. He wrote all that on the chalkboard and then turned around and faced us. So, what are some really important things? He asked. A few kids raised their hand, and as he pointed at them, they gave their answers, which he wrote on the chalkboard in really, really sloppy handwriting. Rules, schoolwork, and homework. What else? He said as he wrote, not even turning around. Just call things out. He wrote everything everyone called out. Family, parents, pets. A girl called out the environment. So he wrote the environment. He wrote on the chalkboard and added our world. Sharks, because they eat dead things in the ocean, said one of the boys, a kid named Reed, and Mr. Brown wrote down sharks. Bees, seatbelts, recycling, friends. Okay, said Mr. Brown, writing all those things down. He turned around when he finished writing to us again, but no one named the most important thing of all. We all looked at him out of ideas. God? Said one kid, and I could tell that even though Mr. Brown wrote God down, that wasn't the answer he was looking for. Without saying anything else, he wrote down who we are. Who we are, he said, underlining each word as he said it. Who we are. Us. Right? What kind of people we are? What kind of person are you? Isn't that the most important thing of all? Isn't that the kind of question we should all be asking ourselves all the time? What kind of person am I? Did anyone happen to notice that plaque next to the door of the school? Anyone read what it says? Anyone? He looked around, but no one answered. It says, know thyself, he said, smiling and nodding. And learning who we are is what you're here to do. I thought we were here to learn English, Jack cracked, which made everyone laugh. Oh yeah, and that too, Mr. Brown answered, which I thought was very cool of him. He turned around and wrote in big, huge black letters that spread all the way across the chalkboard. Mr. Brown's September Precept. When given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. Okay, so everybody, he said, facing us again, I want you to start a brand new section in your notebooks and call it Mr. Brown's Precepts. He kept talking as we did what he was telling us to do. Put today's date at the top of the first page. And from now on, at the beginning of every month, I'm going to write a new Mr. Brown's precept on the chalkboard, and you're going to write it down in your notebook. Then we are going to discuss the precept and what it means. And at the end of the month, you're going to write an essay about it, about what it means to you. So by the end of the year, you'll have your own list of precepts to take away with you. Over the summer, I asked all my students to come up with their very own personal precept. Write it on a postcard and mail it to me from wherever that you go on summer vacation. People really do that? Said one girl whose name I didn't know. Oh yeah, he answered. People really do that. I've had students send me new precepts years after they've graduated from this school. Actually, it's pretty amazing. He paused and stroked his beard. But anyway, next summer seems like a long way off. I know, he joked, which made us laugh. So everybody relax a little bit while I take attendance. And then when we're finished with that, I'll start telling you about all the fun stuff we're going to be doing this year in English. He pointed to Jack when he said this, which was also funny, and we all laughed at that. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, I suddenly realized that I was going to like school, no matter what. Lunch. Via warned me about lunch in middle school, so I guess I should have known it would be hard. I just hadn't expected it to be this hard. Basically, all the kids from all of the fifth grade classes poured into the cafeteria at the same time, talking loudly and bumping into one another while they ran to different tables. One of the lunch lady's teachers said something about no saving seats allowed, but I didn't even know what she meant, and maybe no one else did either, because just about everyone was saving seats for their friends. I tried to sit down at one table, but the kid in the next chair said, "Oh, sorry, somebody else is sitting here." So I moved to an empty table and just waited for everybody to finish stampeding and the lunchroom teacher to tell us what to do next. As she started telling us the cafeteria rules, I looked around to see where Jack Will was sitting, but I didn't see him on my side of the room. Kids were still coming in as the teacher started calling the first few tables to get their trays and stand in line at the counter. Julian, Henry, and Miles were sitting at the table toward the back of the room. Mom had packed me a cheese sandwich, graham crackers, and a juice box, so I didn't need to stand on line when my table was called. Instead, I just concentrating on opening my backpack, pulling out my lunch bag, and slowly opening the aluminum foil wrapping of my sandwich. I could tell I was being stared at without even looking up. I knew people were nudging each other, watching me out of the corner of their eyes. I thought I was used to those kinds of stares by now, but I guess I wasn't. There was a table of girls that I know were whispering about me because they were talking behind their hands. The eyes and whispers kept bouncing over to me. I hate the way I eat. I know it looks weird. I had surgery to fix my cleft palate when I was a baby, and then a second cleft surgery when I was about 4. But I still have a hole in the roof of my mouth, and even though I had a jaw alignment surgery a few years ago, I have to chew food in the front of my mouth. I didn't even realize how this looked until it was my birthday party once, and one of the kids told his mom of the birthday boy, he didn't want to sit next to me because I was too messy with all the food crumbs shooting out of my mouth. I know the kid wasn't trying to be mean, but he got in big trouble later, and his mom called my mom that night to apologize. When I got home from the party, I went to the bathroom mirror and started eating a saltine cracker to see what I looked like when I was chewing. The kid was right. I eat like a tortoise. If you've ever seen a tortoise eating, like some prehistoric swamp thing. The summer table. Hey, is this seat taken? I look up and a girl I've never seen before was standing across from my table with a lunch tray full of food. She had very long, wavy brown hair and wore a brown t-shirt with a purple peace sign on it. No, I said. She put her lunch tray on the table and plopped her backpack on the floor and sat down across from me. She started to eat the mac and cheese on her plate. Ugh, she said after swallowing the first bite. I should have brought a sandwich like you did. Yeah, I said, nodding. My name is Summer, by the way. What's yours? August. Cool, she said. Summer. Another girl came over to my table carrying a tray. Why are you sitting here? Come back to the table. It was too crowded, Summer answered her. Come sit here. There's more room. The other girl looked confused for a second. I realized she had been one of the girls I had caught looking at me just a few minutes earlier, hand cupped over her mouth, whispering. I guess Summer had been one of the girls at that table too. Never mind, said the girl, leaving. Summer looked at me, shrugged, smiled, and took another bite of her mac and cheese. Hey, our names kind of match, she said as she chewed. I guess she could tell I didn't know what she meant. Summer, August, she said, smiling, her eyes wide open as she waited for me to get it. Oh yeah, I said after a second. We can make this a summer-only lunch table, she said. Only kids with summer names can sit here. Let's see. Is there anyone named June or July? There's Maya, I said. Technically, May is spring, Summer answered, but if she wanted to sit here, we could make an exception. She said it as if she'd actually thought the whole thing through. There's Julian. That's like the name Julia, which comes from July. I didn't say anything. There's a kid named Reed in my English class, I said. Yeah, I know Reed. And how is Reed a summer name? She asked. I don't know, I shrugged. I just picture like a reed of grass being a summer thing. Yeah, okay, she nodded, pulling out her notebook. And Miss Petosa could sit here. That kind of sounds like the word petal, which I think is a summer thing too. I have her for homeroom, I said. I have her for math, she said, making her face. She started writing the list of names onto the second of last paper of her homework, of her notebook. So who else? She said. By the end of lunch, we had come up with a whole list of names and teachers who could sit at our table if they wanted. Most of the names weren't actually summer names, but they were names that had some kind of connection to summer. I even found a way of making Jack Will's name work by pointing out that you could turn his name into a sentence about summer. Like, Jack will go to the beach, which Summer agreed worked fine. But if someone doesn't have a summer name and wants to sit with us, she said very seriously, we will still let them if they're nice, okay? Okay, I nodded, even if it's a winter name. Cool beans, she answered, giving me a thumbs up. Summer looked like her name. She had a tan, and her eyes were green like a leaf. 1 to 10. Mom always had this habit of asking me how something felt on a scale of 1 to 10. It started after I had my jaw surgery when I couldn't talk because my mouth was wired shut. They had taken a piece of bone from my hip bone to insert into my chin to make it look more normal. So I was hurting in a lot of different places. Mom would point to one of my bandages, and I would hold up my fingers to show her how much it was hurting. 1 meant a little bit. 10 meant so much. Then she would tell the doctor when he made his rounds what needed adjusting or things like that. Mom got very good at reading my mind sometimes. After that, we got into the habit of doing the 1 to 10 scale for everything that hurt. Like, if I had a plain old sore throat, she'd ask 1 to 10. And I'd say 3 or whatever it was. When school was over, I went outside to meet Mom, who was waiting for me in the front entrance like the other parents or babysitters. The first thing she said after hugging me was, "So how was it? 1 to 10? 5, I said, shrugging, which I could tell totally surprised her. "Wow," she said quietly. "That's even better than what I hoped for." "Are we picking Via up?" "Miranda's mother is picking her up today. Do you want me to carry your backpack, sweetness?" He had started walking through the crowd of kids and parents, most of whom were noticing me, secretly pointing me out to each other. "I'm fine," I said. "It looks too heavy, Augie." She started to take it from me. "Mom," I said, pulling my backpack away from her. I walked in front of her through the crowd. "See you tomorrow, August." It was Summer. She was walking in the opposite direction. "Bye, Summer," I said, waving at her. As soon as we crossed the street and we were away from the crowd, Mom said, "Who's that, Augie?" "Summer." "Is she in your class?" "I have lots of classes." "Is she in any of your classes?" Mom said. "I don't know." Mom waited for me to say something else, but I didn't feel like talking. "So it went okay?" said Mom. I could tell she had a million questions she wanted to ask me. "Everyone was nice. Did you like your teachers?" "Yeah." "How about those kids you met last week? Were they nice?" Fine. Jack hung out with me a lot." "That's so great, sweetie. What about that boy, Julian?" I thought about the Darth Sidious comet. By now, it felt like it had happened 100 years ago. He was okay," I said. "And that blonde girl, what was her name?" "Charlotte." "Mom, I already said that everybody was nice." I lost my spot. "Charlotte, Mom, I said everyone was nice already." "Okay," Mom answered. I honestly don't know why I was kind of mad at Mom, but I was. We crossed Amforest Avenue and she didn't say anything else until we turned onto our block. "So," Mom said, "how did you meet Summer if she wasn't in any of your classes?" "We sat together at lunch," I said. I'd started kicking a rock between my feet like it was a soccer ball, chasing it back and forth across the sidewalk. "She seems very nice." "Yeah, she is." "She's very pretty," Mom said. "Yeah, I know," I answered. "We're kind of like Beauty and the Beast." I didn't wait to see Mom's reaction. I just started running down the sidewalk after the rock, which I had kicked as hard as I could in front of me. Padawan. That night, I cut off my little Padawan braid on the back of my head. Dad noticed first. "Oh, good," he said. "I never liked that thing." Via couldn't believe I cut it off. "That took you years to grow, Augie," she said, almost like she was angry. "Why did you cut it off?" "I don't know," I answered. "Did someone make fun of it?" "No." "Did you tell Christopher you were cutting it off?" "We're not even friends anymore." "That's not true," she said. "I can't believe you would just cut it off like that," she added snottily, and then practically slammed my bedroom door shut as she left the room. I was snuggling with Daisy on my bed when Dad came to tuck me in later. He scooched Daisy over gently to and laid down next to me on the blanket. "So, Augie Doggy," he said, "it was really an okay day?" He got that from an old cartoon about a Deshaun named Augie Doggy. By the way, he had bought it for me on eBay when I was about 4, and he watched it a lot for a while, especially in the hospital. He would call me Augie Doggy, and I would call him Dear Old Dad, like the puppy called the Deshaun Dad on the show. "Yes, it was totally okay," I said, nodding. "You've been so quiet all night." "I guess I'm tired. It was a long day, huh?" I nodded. "But it really was okay?" I nodded again. He didn't say anything. So after a few seconds, I said, "It was better than okay, actually." That's great to hear, Augie, he said quietly, kissing my forehead. So it looks like it was a good call that Mom made. You're going to school. Yeah, but I could stop going if I wanted to, right? That was the deal, yes, he answered. Though, I guess it would depend on why you wanted to stop going too, you know. You'd have to let us know. You'd have to talk to us and tell us how you're feeling. And if anything bad is happening, okay? You promise you'd tell us. Yeah. So, can I ask you something? Are you mad at Mom or something? You've been kind of huffy with her all night. You know, Augie, I'm so as much blamed to, I'm as much blame for sending you to school as she is. No, she's more to blame. It was her idea. Mom knocked on the door just then and peeked her head inside my room. Just wanted to say goodnight, she said. She looked kind of shy for a second. Hi, Mama, Dad said, picking up my hand and waving it at her. I heard you cut off your braid, Mom said to me, sitting down at the edge of the bed next to Daisy. It's not a big deal, I answered quickly. I didn't say it was, said Mom. Why don't you put Augie to bed tonight? Dad said to Mom, getting up. I've got some work to do anyway. Good night, my son. My son. That was another part of her Augie doggy routine, though I wasn't in the mood to say goodnight, old dear Dad. I'm so proud of you, said Dad, and then he got out of my bed. Mom and Dad had always taken turns putting me to bed. I know it was a little babyish of me to still need them to do that, but that's just how it was with us. Will you check in on Via? Mom said to Dad as she laid down next to me. He stopped by my door and turned around. What's wrong with Via? Nothing, said Mom, shrugging. At least she'd tell me. At least she would tell me, but first day of high school and all that. Said Dad, and then he pointed his finger at me and winked. It's always something with you kids, isn't it? He said. Never a dull moment, said Mom. Never a dull moment, Dad repeated. Good night, guys. As soon as he closed the door, Mom pulled out the book she'd been reading for me for the last couple of weeks. I was relieved because I was really afraid she'd want to talk, and I just didn't feel like doing that. But Mom didn't seem to want to talk either. She just flipped through pages until we got to where we had left off. We were about halfway through The Hobbit. Stop, stop, shouted Thorin, and Mom said Mom reading aloud, but it was too late. The excited dwarves had wasted their last arrows, and now the bows had given them were useless. They were a gloomy party that night, and the gloom gathered still deeper on them in the following days. They had crossed the enchanted stream, but beyond it, the path seemed to straggle just as before, and in the forest they could see no change. I'm not sure why, but all of a sudden, while she was reading, I started to cry. Mom put the book down, wrapped her arms around me. She didn't seem surprised that I was crying. It's okay, she whispered in my ear. It'll be okay. I'm sorry, I said between sniffles. Shh, she said, wiping my tears with the back of her hand. You have nothing to be sorry about. Why do I have to be so ugly, Mommy? I whispered. No, baby, you're not. I know I am. She kissed me all over my face. She kissed my eyes that came down too far. She kissed my cheeks that looked punched in. She kissed my tortoise mouth. She said soft words that I know were meant to help me, but words could not change my face. Wake me up when September ends. The rest of September was hard. I wasn't used to getting up so early in the morning. I wasn't used to this whole notion of homework. And I got my first quiz at the end of the month. I never got quizzes when Mom homeschooled me. I also didn't like how I had no free time anymore. Before I was able to play whenever I wanted to, but now it felt like I always had stuff to do for school. And being at school was awful in the beginning. Every new class I had was like a new chance for kids to not stare at me. They would sneak peeks at me from behind their notebooks or when they thought I wasn't looking. They would take the longest way around me to avoid bumping into me in any way, like I had some germ they could catch, like my face was contagious. In the hallways, which were always crowded, my face would always surprise some unexpected kid who maybe hadn't heard about me. The kid would make the sound what you make when you hold your breath before going underwater, a little sound. This happened maybe 4 or 5 times a day for the first few weeks. On the stairs, in front of lockers, in the library. 500 kids in this school. Eventually, every one of them was going to see my face at some point. And I knew after the first couple of days that word had gotten around about me, because every once in a while I'd catch a kid elbowing his friend as they passed me or talking behind their hands as I walked by them. I could only imagine what they were saying about me. Actually, I prefer not to even try to imagine it. I'm not saying they were doing any of these things in a mean way, by the way. Not once did a kid laugh or make noises or do anything like that. They were just being normal dumb kids. I know that. I kind of wanted to tell them that. Like, it's okay. I know I'm weird looking. Take a look. I don't bite. Hey, the truth is, if a Wookiee started going to school all of a sudden, I'd be curious. I'd probably stare a bit. And if I was walking with Jack or Summer, I'd probably whisper to them, "Hey, there's the Wookiee." And if the Wookiee caught me saying that, he'd know I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just pointing out the fact that he was a Wookiee. It took about 1 week for the kids in my class to get used to my face. These were the kids I'd seen every day in all my classes. It almost took 2 weeks for the rest of the kids in my grade to get used to my face. These were the kids I'd see in the cafeteria, yard time, PE, music, library, computer class. It took about a month for the rest of the kids in the entire school to get used to it. These were the kids in all the other grades. They were big kids, some of them. Some of them had crazy haircuts. Some of them had earrings in their noses. Some of them had pimples. None of them looked like me, though. Last chapter for today, Jack Will. I hung out with Jack in homeroom English, history, computer, music, and science, which were all classes that we had together. The teachers assigned seats in every class, and I ended up sitting next to Jack in every single class. So I figured either the teachers were told to put me and Jack together, or it was totally an incredible coincidence. I walked to class with Jack too. I know he noticed kids staring at me, but he pretended not to notice. One time though, on our way to history class, this huge 8th grader who was zooming down the stairs 2 steps at a time accidentally bumped into us at the bottom of the stairs and knocked me down. As the guy helped me stand up, he got a look at my face, and without even meaning to, he just said, "Whoa!" And then he patted me on the shoulder like he was dusting me off and took off after his friends. For some reason, me and Jack started cracking up laughing. That guy made the funniest face, said Jack as we sat down at our desk. I know, right? I said. He was like, "Whoa!" I swear, I think he wet his pants. We were laughing so hard that our teacher, Mr. Roche, had asked us to settle down. Later, we were finished reading about how the ancient Sumerians built sundials. Jack whispered, "Do you ever want to beat those kids up?" I shrugged. I guess I don't know. I'd want to. I think you should get a secret squirt gun or something and attach it to your eyes somehow. And every time someone stares at you, you would squirt them in the face. Yeah, with like green slime or something, I answered. No, with slug juice mixed with dog pee. Yeah, I said, totally agreeing. Guys, Mr. Roche said from across the room, people are still reading. We nodded and looked down at our books. Then Jack whispered, "Are you always going to look that way, August? I mean, can't you get plastic surgery or something?" I smiled and pointed to my face. Hello, this is after plastic surgery. Jack clapped his hand over his forehead and started laughing hysterically. "Dude, you should sue your doctor," he answered between giggles. This time, the two of us were laughing so much we couldn't even stop, even after Mr. Roche came over and made us both switch chairs with the kids next to us. So what I'm noticing about August and Jack Will's relationship, Jack Will was kind of saying some pretty deep things to August about his face and what he looked like, but the difference between Jack Will saying it and between Julian saying it is the fact that Jack Will and him are becoming friends, and we've talked about that a lot in class. There are some things that you can say to your close friends that you guys think is funny, but if a stranger said it to you, you take it to heart. So be careful with what you're saying to people that aren't that close to you. But we will continue this book on Monday. We are on page 65, and the next chapter is called Mr. Brown's October Precept. Have a good week, or have a good night.